Good morning and welcome to the May meeting of the Finance Efficiency, Economy and Sustainability Subcommittee. We're going to start this meeting like we start all meetings of the subcommittee with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Nowakowski, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. All the members of the subcommittee have been provided with the minutes of the April 20th meeting. I would entertain a motion for their approval at this time.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Just wanted to mention before we get any farther into the agenda here that item, item 12, which is custom care and billing. This is an information item only. Do any of my colleagues need a report on that? Any questions? Okay, great. Then we can. So the folks that were going to do that report don't have to stay to the whole meeting to find out that we don't need a report.
It's very efficient. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you. We do have a couple of consent items. Any questions on those? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That item passes unanimously. This now takes us up to item 4, which is the key Phoenix economic indicators for March 2016. This is information only. Any questions from my colleagues or comments? All right. And then item 5 is the subcommittee agenda action item summary. Any questions or comments on that one? Actually, on item 5, I did have one question on it. Again, I really appreciate staff putting together this summary of all the activity that we're doing in this subcommittee, and I would encourage folks to review that to see what's been going on here. But on item 5, I just apologize for. Just wanted to see. There was an item that I wanted to ask about. Item 5, within item 5, there's a request for proposal for language program. It says RFP recommendation on fees agenda for February 17th needs council approval. Has that been approved by the full council or?
I don't know. Right?
Yeah, if we I just want to make sure this
clean
didn't
that
get
up.
lost
Yeah.
in the mix there. But that was it. Anything further from my colleagues? All right, it takes us to item 6, which is update on economic development marketing strategies. Any questions on this item? Okay, all right, then that takes us to item 7, which we do have a report on, authorization to enter into partnership with Cox Communications and US Ignite.
Good morning, Chairman and subcommittee members. We are here today to talk with you about a very exciting opportunity for Phoenix, and that is a partnership with Cox Communications on a program called US Ignite. US Ignite was created by the National Science Foundation in 2015, an initiative that they've driven to really move kind of thought-leading technology, science, and engineering applications forward in the United States. There are 15 smart cities that have been selected to date, and Cox Communications has brought us the opportunity to be the 16th smart gigacity within the country. So the opportunities that allows for us is to really partner with other thought-leading cities to gain best practices, to create a national branding and marketing campaign surrounding this whole Smart Gigacity initiative. This would be a 3-year commitment by the City of Phoenix to partner with Cox on this opportunity, but Cox has graciously and generously provided the funding for us to participate. So from an out-of-pocket cost for the city, there will be no additional out-of-pocket cost for the cities. And again, it allows us the opportunity to join the other original 15 Smart Gigacities as the 16th city. As we talked, as I mentioned, Cox very generously brought us this opportunity. So if it is all right with you, I'd like to turn this over to Michelle Bolton with Cox Communications, kind of to talk about Cox and to talk about why they considered Phoenix of all of their cities for this unique opportunity. Michelle?
Thanks, Chris. So good morning. My name is Michelle Bolton, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs at Cox. Great to be with you this morning. And I just want to mention, on behalf of my company, we are so thrilled and excited to have this opportunity. It is a great effort for all of us to collaborate to develop next-gen technology, to develop smart applications that will really go to support the healthcare arena, education, transportation, public safety, and so much more. So not only will it enhance the lives of our residents that live, work, and play here, but it'll also be a great opportunity to have another tool in the toolbox for economic development. We think this will be a great tool as Phoenix continues to aggressively keep businesses here through their retention efforts as well as business attraction. One thing that I wanted to note before I talk a little bit about our platform, because that's key to this project, is if you're looking at the slide, I want to mention that we still are a family-owned company. We are so thrilled that our fourth and fifth generations of the company are of the heirs of Cox, James Cox, are still very actively involved in the company, and they really provide this atmosphere where it is a family type atmosphere, and they really have us embrace not only our fiduciary responsibility to both our company and our employees, but also to our community and our customers. So I wanted to let you know that. About our platform, we know that when you're developing these next-gen technologies and smart applications, you need a gig platform. You need those high speeds because this technology and the applications involved are really high data. They go back, high data that's being sent back and forth. We have that platform here today. So that's what I'm here to tell you. It exists both from a residential side as well as a business side. And in fact, over the last few decades, we've invested well over $3 billion into our infrastructure so that we can continue to offer great services for residents in and around the valley. I want to touch on business. I think not a lot of people are fully aware of the fact that on our business side, on our platform, we've been offering gig speeds since 2007, and I'm proud to say that we're actually offering up to 100 gig speed for business. And then on the residential side of things, because we know that small businesses sometimes operate out of their homes, maybe you have telework employees, we're also offering those gig speeds on the residential side. And in fact, our first gig customer on the residential space was actually here in Phoenix. So again, we're here, we're investing in our fiber network. We have well over 24,000 miles of coax and fiber, and we continue to put fiber into the ground. So that's our network, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the project. But again, a great collaborative opportunity and a great opportunity to share with other cities.
So the other partner that couldn't be here today is US Ignite. It is a nonprofit that works directly with the National Science Foundation, and they will be overseeing this effort for all of the Smart Gigacities across the country. So if council chooses to move this item forward, we would be working very closely with US Ignite and all the other cities that are there. So their mission is really to create kind of those next generation applications, those next generation companies here within the country, of which we are really excited to be a part. We think this is a great kind of a platform for the city of Phoenix to move forward. We've got a strong technology initiative, a strong startup initiative, and think this is a great way for us to take this forward. As we look at opportunities, we see this taking place in healthcare, in information technology, and sustainability, and municipal government, with our nonprofits and with our technology companies, and specifically focusing on manufacturing. So as we look at those applications relating to advanced manufacturing, we think this is a great way to kind of kick us off and move options forward. It'll also provide Phoenix that national visibility to be able to be kind of lumped in with those companies that are thought of as those thought leaders in technology startups, in technology manufacturing and sustainability applications. As we said, the funding will come from Cox, and they will support that launch for us. One of the requirements that we would have, in fact, a couple of the requirements that we would have is we will be required to create at least 2 applications during that 3-year period of time from the city of Phoenix and post those in the national catalog. So our companies, we will have access to all the applications that are posted, and we will post our own applications, which will be recognized for nationally. As I looked up a few that have already been posted today, they're kind of interesting. A couple really caught my attention. One is if you have allergies, you can log on to this application and it tells you where the pollen counts are higher so that you can walk different directions when you're outside, so you miss the trees and the plants that are causing that pollen. Another that I thought was absolutely fascinating was an application was created to a very sophisticated telescope that operates out of Bethesda, and it is able to attach now into children's classrooms, and the kids have the microscope up on a big screen TV, and they can manipulate the microscope by this application on a smart device and allow them access to this microscope that they never would have had access before. So there are many, many, many of these applications in healthcare, in lifestyle, in education, and neat applications. They're the traditional ones you'd see, street light timing and transit timing and those type of things. But I thought those were 2 particularly unique applications. One of the other requirements that we will have is to form a community group that will kind of lead Phoenix's efforts through this next 3 years, kind of give us our strategic plan, where we want to go and what we want to do. So staff would propose that be a membership of 10, and we'll kind of put those guidelines together of what categories they should fill, and then we would ask each council district to recommend one moving forward, so that we have a full representation of all of our great companies and all of our great leaders here in the community. And then, of course, once the entire group is together, we would certainly notify council and let you know when those meetings would take place. We would, should council choose to move this forward, and at your formal council meeting on June 22nd, we would like the opportunity to have our first meeting probably towards the end of June and start really working on our strategic plan and what our initiatives would look like. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our CTO, Debbie Cotton. She was instrumental in moving this forward, and Economic Development and our Technology Office have been working closely together on this opportunity. So with that, I would be happy to take, the team up here would be happy to take any questions that you might have on moving this exciting initiative forward.
All right, great presentation. Thank you so much. Open it up to questions or comments from my colleagues. From Valenzuela.
Sure. I'm very excited about this. I recently visited Chattanooga, Gig City, and I know it's tied in some way, shape, or form to this type of an initiative. And this is a city that, well, I mean, I just called it Gig City. They are marketing, they do everything around this type of an initiative, and they're very proud of it. And Phoenix is quickly becoming the hub for tech and innovation, entrepreneurship, the startup community, and we collectively, as we sit here with our partners from Cox Communications, we are quickly as a community becoming the most generous community for innovators and entrepreneurs, and this is an exciting example of that. So this is about moving our economy forward. It's about moving education forward. Our kids are going to have an opportunity to use these types of programs and these speeds to get the job done. You know, I'm going to kind of switch hats a little bit, but Cox has this great Connect to Compete program as well. All of it, I think, comes together with this. So I'm incredibly excited. I know that we have one of our economic development leaders, and Chris Camacho, who's sitting right behind you, who's like nodding his head throughout your presentation. So I think that this is good for all of us. Congratulations.
Councilman, as you and I chatted about this opportunity, I thought what was so interesting that you brought to my attention was how Chattanooga was really using this as a marketing and branding opportunity. They had it in their airports. They had it on on banners, they had it on their marketing material. This was something that they were using to really drive their technology brand forward. So we'll look forward to working with the community to do the same thing.
And when you meet with, and they're doing some great things, when you meet with their mayor, their council, like our council, I'm sure, they're very proud of it. They're putting it out there. They want everyone to know, that they're open for business in that way. And it was really exciting to see, but I got to tell you, every moment that I spent there, I started thinking about all the great possibilities that we have here in Phoenix and all the initiatives that we are pushing here in Phoenix. And it's just an exciting day for us as we continue to move this process forward.
Yes. Councilman Waring.
I would just say Cox has been a great partner, and this is a good thing for Phoenix. I don't always get to say the positive at these meetings, I'll confess, so this is
All
fine.
right.
I don't see any downside, and I think we should applaud the effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Noakowski.
I just want to go off of what Mr. Waring's talking about is family-owned business that really gives back to the community. I mean, the events that you put on, the movies in the park, just being accessible in poor neighborhoods. That's the key also. So, having that, 24,000 miles of fiber, that's throughout our whole city. So I want to thank you for the commitment, not just parts of the city, but for the whole city of Phoenix. And Michelle, just go back and tell Cox thank you for all that great partnerships that you had in the past, and now with this partnership that we're going to have in the future, and just really bringing Phoenix to a whole different level. So thank you so much.
All right, I would echo the comments of my colleagues. Thank you, Michelle, and to Cox. I mean, incredible partners and real innovators. One of the first companies in the valley to do the solar, I have to do a shout out for solar, as I'm headed, the solar covered parking. Now, everyone else is doing that, and this is just another example, a real investment in, we've had some involvement in our office and some of the other offices on the city council and the mayor's office with the Smart City App Hack competition, which I have to give credit to Dominic Papa from my office, who is really involved in this effort. So this dovetails very well with that. I was talking to my 12-year-old about this, and she said, "Does this mean that we're going to get food from 3D printers?" Yeah, that commercial, she's obsessed with that. So, yeah, can I tell her that this means she's going to get food from a 3D?
Is your last name Jetson?
See, you obviously haven't seen that commercial, Councilman Waring. But no, again, thank you. What a wonderful collaborative effort, and very, very excited about this. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, and that takes us to our next item, which is authorization to enter into contract with the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And he was previously mentioned, but now joining us at the table, Mr. Chris Camacho. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Councilman. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. And I do have a brief presentation that we've prepared for you, and this is rather comprehensive, so I'm going to run through this quickly. I know we provided this in advance. And one of the aspects of the organization that I think is really important is that you have the ability to leverage private sector monies as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which we're now close to amassing a 2-to-1 private match to the public dollars that we receive across the 23 cities and Maricopa County. And so it's a unique model. It's one of the longest standing public-private partnerships that exists across the country. And our results, I think, speak for themselves, but I'm going to walk through this deck rather quickly, and then I'll answer any questions at the end. Before I begin, I did want to acknowledge the city and its recognition just this week for the President's e-Export Award, which is a nationally acclaimed award to the city for a great emphasis and commitment to exports. And I could spend a lot of time talking about the importance of exports across our small, medium-sized enterprises, but that national recognition will tie into a lot of the earned media strategies that we have coinciding with our community here, to push out the fact that we're a very progressive, forward-looking, innovative-based economy. So with that, you'll see the results here that are reflected across our tenure as GPEC. Since 1989, we've drawn 660 new companies to the market, over $13 billion of induced investment, and 116,000 jobs. The base work that we do largely is to provide a return to our communities, and that's really an emphasis focusing on bringing high-wage jobs and diversifying the tax base. It's pretty simple. So we target very specific industries and work very closely with our city staff here, which one of the best in the country, I believe. And we've had the pleasure of returning, for every dollar that's committed from the city to GPEC, a 33-to-1 return on investment, and those are direct tax dollars that are generated from projects that we've directly assisted with. We have a flat per capita rate this year that we're requesting, which is 43.5 cents, and so that 43.5 cents is again per capita per head within each jurisdiction that participates within the organization. Funding is slightly requesting an increase of the 1.4%. That's, again, every year driven by either population growth or contraction. This year it's a 1.4% population growth. You do have 8 seats on behalf of our board of directors, which I'd be happy to walk through if you're interested. Ed Zerker, your city manager, is participatory as one of the seats on my board, which I have another board meeting tomorrow morning. And we're on a very interesting trajectory, I think, as a market, which I'm going to touch on towards the end, that expands well beyond business attraction as well. We do support the city in its trade endeavors, largely in Mexico, but also in other markets. And we're seeing Mexico open up significantly as a trading partner, and we've seen that for the last decade, but we see just a tremendous opportunity looking forward with both imports, but also notoriously in exports as well. And then I'd say one area that we've really ramped up in the last half decade, 5 years, has been our earned media strategy, and that's really supporting, and what Councilman Valenzuela touched upon, is the recognition of the urban market becoming the epicenter for tech and tech startups. And we've placed a number of different national stories in the Washington Post and New York Times and others talking about this new age economy and this really progressive focus on how we build a new technology roadmap for this particular region, anchored here in the city of Phoenix. So year to date, we're sitting 10 months into our fiscal year. You can see on the slide deck here that we've induced a number of jobs, 6,600 Phase 1 jobs. And that represents about just over $300 million of net new payroll that's added to the market, which obviously induces new tax expenses, tax generating expenses in the market. Average salaries just under 40, or just over 47,000, which is approximately 140% of the county median wage. We've had 37 locates this year, which we're projecting end of year, which is a June 30th end date, that we will be right in the 43 to 45 locate number, which will be our highest number on record. It's induced a pretty significant level of capital, which can swing based upon 1 or 2 projects each year if you have a highly capital investment driven project, but you'll see that over the last 5 years we've had an inducement of $2.5 billion, and that excludes the property out in Mesa that Apple converted to their mission critical facility. So these are just a list of the projects. I'm not going to run through each one because the city of Phoenix generally on average amasses about 60% or more of our deal flow activity, and I can run through the next few slides. There's 25 projects. Pretty extensive. And I talk with Chris, my partner in crime here, as we work together on closing a lot of these projects and selling to them. A lot of it's about location, it's about product, and it's about talent. And obviously, if you don't have infrastructure, you don't compete. You don't get into the conversation. So infrastructure is critical, but our ability to showcase the labor environment, the trade area, the quantifiable evidence that why this market makes sense in context of other places. I wish I received calls that said we want to be in Phoenix. And that's all we need to do is help them move into the market. Unfortunately, when we have 280 calls that we're working with per year, the general conversation is we're looking at Metro Phoenix and we're looking at 10 other markets. And so our due diligence process is to provide pretty extensive analytics that help them analyze this market in competitive context of other regions across the U.S.
And council members, if I could call your attention to one thing that I think is of particular importance, really calling recognition to Lori Kwan and her team who lead our Business Attractions Division and GPEC. You'll notice the average salary of the jobs that we have created this past year is significantly higher than what Phoenix had done in the past. So Phoenix is now really where it hadn't gotten in for some of those tech plays or those advanced business services plays. Phoenix is in and it's winning the high wage jobs. These are not the $26,000, $29,000, $31,000 a year distribution jobs, which are wonderful jobs, but we are now winning our fair share of high wage technology and advanced business services jobs. You'll also note that on the job side, we're well over our fair share of those jobs as well. So congratulations really to Lori and her team for leading that effort with GPEC and driving us where we are today.
And I'd echo some of those comments in that we interact with about 50 of the top site selection firms nationally, and this is PwC and Ernst & Young and Deloitte and others that are representing the corporate 1,000 companies that are deciding where to place headcount and capital. And the relationship we have with the city is recognized as one of the best in the country. In the way that we work together, we streamline process. GPEC on the front end, building the market value proposition, the city on the back end, working through the permit and development services cycle. It's a seamless transition for any company. Yesterday we were up at Farmers Insurance and their new plan up in North Phoenix. They couldn't have spoke more highly of their experience in working with the region and working with the city. So in our current, so let's fast forward to what's ahead. We will be going before the board tomorrow to recommend even a higher level of metrics for our organization, which will be our highest on record, but I'm confident based upon what's in our project portfolio, as Chris alluded to, the percentage of high wage jobs, the overall average wage of those jobs, and the total job counts tied to targeted industries. So for example, industries where Greater Phoenix is going to see exponential job growth. It's in industries like healthcare and the biomedical technology sector. It's in information communication technologies, certainly advanced manufacturing, but also broad-based technology largely anchored in software, both on the corporate side and startup side. We're going to see significant levels of job growth in those particular sectors as well. So this is, next slide is just a simple breakdown of our pipeline. We're pretty analytical in how we determine how we place our resources out in the market. Probably no surprise, you'll see on the left-hand column a lot of headquarters opportunities, advanced services operations as well, and this is largely the back office nodes of financial services and tech. And on the right-hand column, you'll see that almost a quarter of our deal flow is out of California, hence why we spend so much time there. They do us a lot of favors as they've put a very difficult regulatory environment in place, so companies get to some level of scale in California and need to find an alternative option to go to scale, and hence why our market gets a lot of looks from the California market. This is simply a breakdown of our office versus industrial pipeline. You'll see that on average, office and industrial almost split today. It used to be about a 60-40 split. And one of the drivers of this change has largely been the fact that office product and the confidence in the capital markets to build office spec has begun to change this dynamic. So the more product we have, the more closures we're going to have, more transactions we're going to have. Closures in terms of a positive word. Closures of transactions for the market. And so this is really important from a city perspective. I mentioned the $662,000 is the annual due structure for the organization. You'll see the 5-year trend. We're trending in a positive light relative to number of locates as well as the dollars in terms of ROI back to the community. And that's, again, direct tax revenue that's created by your investment. And then I wanted just to spend a few minutes on the looking forward strategy. So we spent the better part of 9 months creating a 3-year strategic plan that'll go live July 1, which is really focused on the bedrock of economic development, which is continuing to focus on our competitive position while continuing to execute an aggressive business development, business attraction plan. And so we're spending more time with our communities. Emily Mead, who's to my right here, leads our community interface, which is our community partnership program, where we're constantly interacting with our 23 cities, talking about their respective strategies to induce job creation, both organically and attraction, how that fits into a regional strategy as well. And then largely the one key differentiator that we are experiencing in probably a 24-month trend, more notably, is workforce development. So our ability to produce a pipeline across the K through 20 system is like what we experienced in the 1990s and early 2000s around infrastructure. If you don't have the workforce, you're not going to get the look. If you don't have the infrastructure, you're not going to get the look. And so we're working with our workforce development partners, not necessarily GPEC leading the strategy, but convening the strategy to ensure that we have our workforce development partners aligned with where future jobs are, and we're training to those specific workforce needs. And then we'll continue to lead on policy and competitiveness, working with our legislative counterparts at the state capitol to ensure that we are pushing forward a competitiveness agenda that meets the needs of our region. And then just a specific breakdown, we're going to continue to focus on bringing high-level decision makers to the market through our mega event strategy. We're going to continue to focus on our foreign direct investment platform, which is largely anchored in Canada, which is 50% of our pipeline today, and in Western Europe as well. And then we'll be focusing with our communities on these high-impact district areas, which are largely what Chris talked about, and creating those urban corridors that are the sticky glue to attracting these type of innovators, both in market, but also recruiting the innovators to the sense of place model that you're seeing across the country. And no offense to Chattanooga, Mr. Valenzuela, but one of the things that we find across the country is communities and regions are trying to create brand identity today. So this gig movement that you're seeing across the country, Cox has been doing that for a number of years. Gig is the new term for enabling the transmission of information, and markets across the country are gravitating towards that because it's really agnostic to any technology disposition. It's all about speed. And that's one thing that we've been doing for a long time as a market, but we're going out in an outward-facing brand platform to reinforce that. And then on competitiveness, we're going to continue to do the work that we've done on our market intelligence efforts, which is analyzing the health of our key base industry sectors like aerospace and defense, like software, like healthcare, and others that are really, in microelectronics is another, that are really the anchors of our high-wage job community. And so, for example, in the last 3 years, we've launched 5 major reports that assess the health of each of those respective sectors, and then given our communities guidance on strategies to ensure we have the right engagement model with those respective companies. And so I'll be happy to pause. I know I ran through that quickly. We provided a pretty significant level of detail, I know to you in advance, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about GPEC or our partnership with the city.
Chairman, just as an addition to the information before you ask Chris or I your questions, there is also in their contract this year, we are asking for a $50,000 supplemental, which will be paid by the water department. This was something that City Council did in partnership with us last year, approving that $50,000 initiative focusing on a tech media tour. We had tremendous outcomes out of that. We had 5 national publications, national stories that were written on a tech front. It equaled about 43 million media impressions, so 43 million people actually saw those articles, and we had a return on investment in terms of advertising, what it would have cost us to advertise to gain that same, of about $175,000, so a 3-to-1 return on our investment. What we'd like to do this year is to focus that national media tour on water. As we look at moving forward, as we look at all of the conversation that's going on with California and Colorado and New Mexico and others, Arizona has had such incredibly thoughtful water planning for so long. We really are the leaders on that front, and we want to ensure that these companies that are looking for national moves in advanced business services and advanced manufacturing and others don't just discount Arizona because they think we're tied up in that same drought problem that the other states are. And so we'd be working on that national campaign should council choose to approve that and GPEC's contract this year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Great presentation. Always interesting to hear what's going on at GPEC, and I love the addition of the water strategy and getting the word out on the fact that Arizona does have a long-term water plan. With that, be happy to open it up to questions, comments?
Just comments. It's one of the strongest partners we have in the city and in the state in this organization with GPEC and with your leadership, Chris. Going back to Chattanooga for just a moment, Chattanooga is working with what they have, which is speed. And I'm glad to hear that we are going to be catching up with our marketing presence as well. And I know that's saying, I'm preaching to the choir, because I know you're literally traveling the world talking about this particular market. And of course, all of the efforts happening with the city of Phoenix with Chris Mackey. It's important to talk about what we have to offer. Having those tech reporters come in was invaluable, especially that time of year. we have our weather, hosting them in downtown Phoenix during a very exciting time. And just, again, having GPEC as a partner all the way through. I appreciate the effort, the regional effort that you have, that your organization has, because what's good for the region is good for all of us. And we've all said that. I think every elected official that I know, especially in local government, says it. And I, with some of my friends who are council members or mayors throughout the valley, I throw a little joke, half joke out there. A regional win is a win for all of us, especially if it's in Phoenix, right? And I know that they feel the same way. But that said, and I know, Chris, I know that, Mr. Camacho, I know that you literally have this view of the region, and that's valuable. I will say that said, 15 out of 37 companies in fiscal year 15-16 are in Phoenix. And those particular companies will bring more than 2,100 jobs and more than $873 million in capital investment. So it is good for the region. It certainly is good for the city of Phoenix, and this is one of the strongest partners that we have in terms of moving our economy forward and knowing that it's just more than just, it's an all-encompassing effort to bring a company here. It is, it's the efforts towards education, it's the efforts towards marketing and branding and bringing the right people together. It's a big job, and you continue to help move us forward. So that said, I am absolutely supportive, and I know that my colleagues may also want to speak, but I'm ready to make a motion as well.
All right, other comments or questions? Councilman Waring.
I would just say Councilman Valenzuela is absolutely right about the regionalism. So I think a couple of years ago, maybe it was 4 years ago, I think he was here, we switched our procurement issues so it wasn't just limited to Phoenix. I can't remember exactly how it worked because it's been quite a few years and quite a few votes in between. But I do think, for the most part, we've tried to walk that walk as well as talk the talk, and I think that's a good thing, because when I was in the reason that sort of near and dear to my heart, when I was in the legislature earlier in the 2000s, I mean, cities were at each other's throats all the time, and you just don't really hear that, one recent exception, but apart from that, you just don't hear that like you did. It was continuous. We used to hear about that continuously, people fighting over different businesses. The car dealership was going to be on one side of the street or the other. It was like who could give away more taxpayer money to lure them. You just don't hear that now. I think GPEC plays a big role in that. So that's something that's really important to me. People watching this might be like, oh, maybe that's overstated. It was a big deal. I thought it was costing taxpayers a lot of money. Mayors had different views on it. It was really Mayor Stanton, our mayor, wasn't the mayor then, but it was a big fight. Council people from the same cities would come down and give vastly different stories and testimony to our committees. It was really an unfortunate situation. I think it's really turned around. I think you played a big role in that. So that's a big part of the reason I vote for this every year, is not just the obvious economic benefits that you highlighted, but the fact that it does behoove us to work together. Business can locate in Chandler, but the employees can still live in Phoenix, vice versa, and that had gotten completely lost on Valley leaders up until, I would say, 2005, 2006, when things started to turn around. So I just want to make that point. So sorry for taking so much time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Nowakowski.
I just really want to thank the team effort on both sides. I mean, since we had Chris Mackey here, I mean, we've really changed in our way that we tell the Phoenix story. And we borrowed, right? And then one of the things that I can really talk about too is on the 202. We were looking at trying to put retail in there, and then Chris and her team came to us and said, we should really look at more high-paying jobs, quality jobs, and some tech jobs are out there. So now we've worked with all the stakeholders in that area, and they're all agreeing. And then we're coming up with a master plan, and we're talking about what we would like to see in that area. Instead of waiting for those businesses to come to us, we're going to them and we're asking them, this is what we want to see in the Laveen, Estrella Mountain area. The ROI is big, and I think it's because of our staff that we have. The other thing is attracting those decision makers and bringing them and wining and dining them. I think it's important that they actually come down to Phoenix. They get to see or go out to spring training. They get to experience the Phoenix way of life in the state of Arizona. One of the big things that I've seen over the last 2 years is that whole regional approach, but not just within the state, but also within Mexico, the state of Sonora, creating that mega region where we're going internationally and talking about this mega region that we have, the state of Sonora and we have the state of Arizona working together and selling to the Chinese, to Europe, and trying to attract those businesses here. I think we need to start continuing those types of partnerships out there. And it's really because of the efforts in bringing the A teams from both sides together to create what we have right now. So I just really want to thank you. And the average paying job is about 12,000 more here in Phoenix than the rest of the state. And that's really the efforts of our team here in Phoenix. I just really want to give Chris thanks and her team for really bringing Phoenix to a whole different level. And I agree with the whole high-tech. We need to really attract more high-tech businesses, not just within the 202, but throughout the whole city of Phoenix. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, both Chris's, right? The CC team. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. I would echo what everyone has said. Been obviously watching the efforts, our economic development efforts over the years, and I feel like right now we're really running on all cylinders. And Chris, and both Chris's, but Chris Camacho, I want to thank you for the professionalism that you brought to the table, and your coordinated efforts with the governor's office and with the city of Phoenix is just fantastic. And I know it's no surprise to you that people are talking about that in the business community, so we are so thankful. And Chris, thank you for leaving that other city in the region and coming here and making a fantastic team. Yes,
When you're done,
Councilman
I'm sorry,
Waring.
I just want.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to. One thing, so I voted against a lot of memberships and so forth. This is different. This is actually, we're getting a product or a service, or however you want to look at that. I say that every year, but just to make a distinction. Some of the memberships are fine. Some of them I think are of dubious value. But this is actually something. We're getting something for this that I think benefits, as I said, not just Phoenix, but the region. So I just
Does
want
it
to make that
benefit
point.
the county at all, or?
I don't know. The county? I don't know.
All right, I shouldn't have let you
No, you
talk.
shouldn't have let me talk.
I'm
I
turning
didn't-
your mic off.
Did I bring up the county? I did not.
No,
That
that's
wasn't
true. Yeah,
me.
I'm turning
That was
his
a dig
mic
to the
off
left,
too.
not
Yeah,
the right,
good point,
yeah.
good point. All right,
Literally,
thank
figuratively.
you, thank you. We don't hear that very often, so that's high praise. No, I'm saying that's a compliment. A couple of things, and I think this is probably one of the things that is in Councilman Waring's mind is the 33-to-1 investment. I mean, that's exceptional. So great work there. And also very pleased to see the focus on workforce development, because of course, when we go out, that's a major issue that we hear about. So thanks for, bringing folks together to collaborate on this. But a couple of questions. One question is, how can the elected officials best support your efforts as you go after these companies? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think, you're constant ambassadors for your communities, and that transcends the region and the state. So I think as you're out in your travels interacting with companies locally and nationally, constantly being that brand ambassador is really important. And I'd say that's first and foremost. I think the city staff does a really good job on the transactional side, but I think ensuring that policy, at the local level ensures that we continue to be pro-business and focusing on speed to market. That's the differentiator today. Once we get to a point where it's, final and two markets are viewed as equivalent markets, being in a position where we can, eliminate any of the bureaucracy and red tape that mitigates speed, that's something we have to constantly focus on. So those would be a couple things I would say.
No, thank you. I
Mr. Chair, I would
appreciate
just
that.
also
Yes.
add, and thank you for recognizing that Chris has brought a new energy to the relationship with the state. I don't think it's been better
Yep.
in that. It's been really important. The other thing I just commend Chris on is Chris is a listener. He's listened to what's going on. The suggestion about those water marketing message came from a board meeting. Chris has taken that and run with it. And we didn't always see that before, so I really would commend that. But to your question, I think there's another thing I would mention. So doing things like becoming a gigabit city is a policy level thing that supports exactly what's going on. But another thing that the Phoenix City Council does is as stewards of Phoenix Sky Harbor International, That is one of the big competitive advantages and programs we have to continue to focus on to, and Chris can tell you about that, but the location and the strength of Sky Harbor is a huge piece, and it's the Phoenix City Council that has to do the heavy lifting on Sky Harbor. So I just would never lose sight of that as something that this council has always done and continues to do to make and support the work of CED and GPAC.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Councilor Nowakowski.
You know, another thing too is our convention center. I mean, people come down here for a convention, they fall in love with our city and our state, and they want to relocate. So I mean, our staff and our great convention center that we have, and also the Super Bowl and all the great events that we're able to attract through that team effort with the state and the city. So, you know, we got to keep up that good work too. And as elected officials, we open the doors and get out of the way and let them do their jobs.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve this item. And
Motion to approve? Oh, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, you had offered,
No,
Councilman Valenzuela.
motion to approve staff recommendation.
Okay, motion. Do you have a second?
Go ahead and second.
You seem determined to step on Danny's thunder.
No, go for it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any
We all get
further
along,
di-
Chris.
Yes.
realize we're the only ones who
Yeah.
actually keep minutes. Nobody really cares if first or second.
You forget our high Nielsen ratings
Yeah.
that we get though for these subcommittee meetings. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Not at all.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Next is item 9, request to enter into agreement process improvement training pilot program.
Mr. Chair, while they're coming up, I will say that that's a very bureaucratic name for something we have a different name for, which is the Lean Team. This is the Lean Team. I'm very pleased Mario has agreed to take on this effort as an executive leader. And we also have great work going on. So I'll turn it over to Mario and Melissa, who are leading this effort.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you, Chairman Gates and members of the subcommittee. We are here today to request moving forward with the contract. And what the contract will do is allow us to equip a team of city staff members, a very strong team, a hand-picked team, to increase their knowledge based on Six Sigma and Lean principles that will be used to conduct what we call Kaizen events. Kaizen, process improvement, is a synonymous term, but it's really about finding ways to improve what we do here in the service delivery in the city. This initiative was set up by the city manager to advance the goals of this subcommittee. Now, this subcommittee has accomplished a great deal under your leadership, Chairman Gates, and the leadership of the members of this subcommittee. We have done a lot, and it's been an honor and privilege working with you to do all of that. What we're talking about today is carrying that forward in the future and carrying on that legacy. The goals of this subcommittee of eliminating waste, making sure that all we're doing is adding value to what we do and to our customers, and really bringing that focus to our customers, the citizens of this city. This subcommittee has been doing that all along, and so we're going to keep that going forward with the Lean Team. The other thing that I'll point out about the Lean Team is this isn't just a kind of a one and done approach. We're not talking about bringing in some consultant help to come in and look at our processes for us and come in and give us some recommendations and then be done. What we're talking about doing is bringing in and training staff to be able to do that themselves, to look more closely and extensively at our internal processes on an ongoing basis, so that we can continue to do this each and every year and make sure that this is just an inherent part of what we do and a part of our culture. So I think this is a very strong step forward in that regard, and we'll talk more about exactly what that is. So this is something that is really about our customers and dealing with frustrations of our customers, with bureaucracy and steps that really don't add value or seem unnecessary. That's also a frustration for employees. So if something that they're doing is taking too much time or is wasteful, they don't want to be doing that. And of course, that's a frustration for supervisors and management as well. The origins of the concepts and principles that we're going to be talking about are go back to efforts by Toyota and Motorola several decades ago, and those have been refined. We're obviously not in the manufacturing business, we're in the service business, and those approaches are refined and customized for what we're doing, and the principles are about what we're doing here, which is providing services. We do have a group of folks that are going to be trained initially, but that will be an ongoing training that we'd like to do, working with each and every department throughout the city. These are folks that are very strong staff, are highly motivated, very critical thinkers who can go in and just want to fix things and get things done. Melissa's going to talk to you more about our process for selecting the vendor that's going to do the training. So I'll hand it over to Melissa at this point.
Good morning, Chair, members of the subcommittee. We had a great process. If you notice, we went to fees. We came here back in the fall, and we did a very successful, what I would call successful procurement process. We had many proposals. We had 6 to be exact, and we went through those proposals over the fall and Christmas. And now we are back requesting approval to contract with a company, and we would like to move forward to council next month. And that's why you see the June 2016, we'll be taking this to City Council. And we will be mobilizing our team, if this is approved, over the summer to begin work with the contractor. Like I said, there were 6 companies who put in for this proposal, and we feel that the one that we're recommending, QPIC, was found to be the highest qualified to move us forward to make that long-term cultural change and to really carry your efforts further into the future for many years to come. Our next slide, I'd like to do a little bit of storytelling on the next slide. This picture is a picture of what a company did when they looked at one of their processes, how they get their job done. It was extremely time-consuming. It involved many people, and everyone put their part of the process up on the board. It filled an entire room. And at the end of the day, at the end of 2 days, they were able to take hundreds of Post-it notes and minimize it down to a dozen or so steps in the process. Everybody got together and looked at why were they doing things the way they were doing it. Over the weekend, I was at the Department of Motor Vehicle. I had to register my car, and I was thinking about this PowerPoint. And I thought, first of all, why did I wait until the 14th to get my car registration done? That was due the 15th. And I was sitting in line at the emissions. And this brought back my thoughts of how emissions were 20 years ago and all of the process changes that have occurred that we may not even think about anymore. In the past, you had to go into the building. Everybody's registration was sent out the same day. Now everything is staggered. You can see online wait times, so you can look ahead before you go in line. Everything has been based on serving the customer better and faster. And we might not even think about it, but that is taking place every day and serving their customers better. I was one of those customers over the weekend. So this gets me to the point of habituation. Habituation is the process of everybody sees the same problem, everybody sees it all the time, and you just need one person to look at that problem and decide, this problem cannot continue. We need to fix this process. We need to make it a lot more efficient. We need to make it faster and better for our customers and for ourselves, because we're doing the work to serve the customers. And I think that this is a good depiction of some of our city processes. And what I would like to do is use this to go from a whole room full of Post-it notes for some of our processes down to a dozen steps so that we can serve our customers and also have a more efficient process for our staff members to conduct. So that's my story. You want to take? So what we're doing is continuous process improvement. Everything is based on not just the one and done, like Mario said. This is us fixing things into the future so that we're saving time, we're saving efforts, we're saving energy, and this isn't going to be something where we work with our contractor and we do 3 projects and then we just stop. We would, at that time, come back to you, ask for your advice on what we have found with that contractor, and ask if you would like us to continue.
So with that, we would open it up to any questions you might have. What we're asking for today is approval for recommendation to the City Council to move forward with the award to QPIC for the training of the Lean Team.
Okay. Well, that presentation just put a smile on my face. I'm so happy that you all are doing this now. It's something we've been talking about for years, and so I'm thrilled. So with that, open it up to questions or comments from my colleagues.
I think you said it all. This has been your thing, so, for your, is this your last meeting? Your last meeting? I thought you were saying you were so happy to hear this because you'd never have to hear this from these two again. I was like, that's kind of mean, even by my standards, but I'm glad that you rephrased. But, no, this is all you, so.
And I just really
Councilor
want,
Nowakowski.
I want to thank the chair for his efforts in making this possible, and I want to thank you all for using one of his quotes at the very beginning. It was.
Glad you noticed.
So, Bill, just thank you. I mean, it's about customer service. When people call up here, sometimes they get bounced around from one department to another, and then they call the council member, and they basically start yelling at us that we've called this department, that department. And it's about customer service, and it's really about the individuals that pay all of our salaries here. It's those taxpayers, so making sure that we're good stewards with that tax dollars. So thank you so much for putting this together, and hopefully in the future, we're going to have the best customer service out there.
And, Mr. Chair, if I
Thank you,
may.
Councilman. Yes.
So the type of call Councilman Nowakowski has described, I got a text to that effect just now from a constituent, so we haven't totally refined everything, but.
Well,
but I
that's
do
why
think
we need to
progress-
do this,
I think
right?
progress is being made, but,
Yeah.
we still are working, but certainly made, as he indicated, a good start, so.
And if you have a process to recommend for the team to work on, we're open to those.
We want
I
to hear-
do, as a matter of fact.
Great.
Excellent.
Melissa will be, or Mario will be happy to take those. They're taking suggestions right now. So seriously, we're going to take them from employees and from departments. What do they want to fix? And we'd love to
And
hear
this is
from
more of a
you.
department that has several different facets to it, and so they kind of felt like they got bounced
We'd
around.
love to hear those processes that drive you and your offices crazy too.
Yeah, this really is the natural next step of the efficiency efforts. A lot of the low-hanging fruit has been addressed, but both through technology, we've talked about that, how technology is going to help us to unlock more savings and efficiencies, but this culture change that this effort is going to bring is, as you said, will last, hopefully when all of us are gone from here. It's had great success in the private sector. I've come from a culture, I've been in a lean culture for the past 15 years in the private sector, and I think it can be incredibly successful here and really help, again, the city of Phoenix to be on the map as an innovative municipality. And I love that you guys are working on it, and the vision that you've articulated is right on. Continuous improvement is what this is all about. And Chris Camacho in his presentation, right, he talked about streamlining. So we're hearing from the private sector, not only will this benefit and will our residents get better customer service, but it's going to put us in a stronger position to compete for these additional locates in the future. So thanks, and with that, would entertain a motion to approve this item.
Move to approve.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and good luck with this. Next, we have item 10. This is disposal of city-owned land. It's a 5.7 acre remnant property. We have some additional work that needs to be done on this before it'll be ready for consideration, so I would entertain a motion to continue this item.
Motion to continue this item.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilman Ware? And a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes unanimously. And then that brings us to item 11, which is the 91st Avenue digester gas, another thing that I've been interested in for a long time.
We thought this might be the last thing you'd want to hear.
Yeah, that's right.
And so here it is.
There you go. Perfect.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning.
Chairman, members of the subcommittee. think it's on. Karen Peters, Deputy City Manager, and I am here to introduce this very exciting item to talk about the digester gas at 91st Avenue Wastewater Treatment Plant. And before I introduce our speakers, I will say that this is another silo-busting operation. This is an interdepartmental effort. The Office of Environmental Programs has been very involved. The Chief Sustainability Officer and his energy team have been very involved, of course, supported by our friends at the Law Department. So with no further ado, Catherine Sorensen, who will introduce the newest member of her team, our Water and Services Department Director.
Good morning, council members. Thanks for having us. Yeah, with me today is Dennis Porter. He took Ron Serio's place when Ron retired. Dennis is in charge of all of the wastewater utility operations. He joins us from South Carolina, but I believe is originally a Westerner and wanted to get back. So, but we're very fortunate to have him. He has extensive experience in both the water and wastewater industries. He'll actually be the one taking us through this presentation, and I'll let him do that. I just want to mention, though, before he gets started, that we're bringing this to you now. There are still some details that need to be worked out in terms of the contract and working with our Shorrock partner cities. We're hoping to bring the final contract and have everything wrapped up in June to a formal city council meeting. So, Dennis.
See how this works. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for allowing us to be here to present this exciting project. It's not often that we hear people get excited about our digestion process at the wastewater treatment facility, so thank you for that.
Maybe I shouldn't have admitted that.
No, it's a very technical process that we do over at the 91st Avenue Treatment Plant, and right now, we digest the gas just like you digest food in your stomachs, and it's wasted away. We use a little bit of that gas in the boiler fuel, but the rest of it we flare off. That gas comes from our anaerobic digestion process. We've now entered into this negotiations with Ameresco to sell that excess digester gas as a renewable green energy commodity. It will also create a positive revenue stream, and it also reduces the plant's carbon footprint. So not only are we giving a positive return financially, we're also meeting some of the objectives with the city with regards to sustainability as well as renewable energy. This is a picture of the biogas processing facility. I believe these are pictures from San Antonio Water System, one of our peer agencies in Texas. They have done a similar project. It's been very successful, and so we look forward to doing the same thing. This is kind of gives you a picture of what it looks like. The footprint is, let's see, this is there in purple. It's about 60 feet by 300 feet, I believe. There's also a pipeline that will deliver the biogas to a Kinder Morgan pipeline. There'll be a connection, and I'll show you a little bit more of that. It's located right next to the digesters where that gas is produced. The flares that flare off the excess gas right now are located right adjacent to it, so we can easily make that connection with the processed gas into the Ameresco facility and into the pipeline. This gives you an idea of the pipeline that'll deliver the gas to the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Basically, it goes around the complex, around the Tres Rios project, and over to make that connection. Again, this is kind of a schedule, our estimated schedule of when we believe we can be successful with completion of the project. If we could get those contracts signed in July, Ameresco would proceed with purchasing the long lead time equipment, get that detailed design done in December of 17, if not sooner, and we would be online with that facility in no later than the summer of 2018, and hopefully sooner, because the sooner we get the project online, the quicker we start producing revenue. This gives you an idea of the project responsibilities. On Ameresco's part, they would own the biogas processing facility as well as the pipeline. They would be the ones that would be negotiating the purchase of the biogas and the sale of the biogas with regards to obtaining those renewable energy credits. They would be responsible for the design, the construction, the staffing, the operation and maintenance, and the flare acid phase waste biogas. From our perspective, our job would be to deliver that biogas to their facility right adjacent to our anaerobic digesters. We would be leasing the property adjacent to our property as well as the easements for the pipeline. Obviously, just like we have to do today, we would maintain the flares in operable and available condition. We have to do that anyway. And then, of course, we would provide them the opportunity of access to any utilities they would need, water, electricity, whatever they would need on site. Again, we're very excited about this project. It brings many valuable attributes to the city and as well as to the utility. Right now, we flare off that waste gas to the atmosphere. There's air quality issues associated with that. We would be reducing the carbon footprint, reducing the amount of air pollution that we emit. There's potential even for further future use of clean gas, potentially on-site for emergency power. We'll be taking a look at that. Almost last but not least is the receipt of the revenue from the sale of the renewable green energy gas. And then again, it's good for us from a public perception perspective. Not only are we're gaining the value of the revenue from selling of the biogas, but we're being sustainable as well. Thank you, and with that, we'll answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Questions, Councilor Nowakowski?
So what is the potential revenue for the city of Phoenix?
So, Councilmember Gates, Councilmember Nowakowski, we don't have final estimates, but preliminarily, it looks like about $800,000 a year in revenue through the sale of the gas for the city of Phoenix, about $1.6 million for all the Shrog cities combined.
And Catherine, I would assume that that would be used to offset sewage costs, sewer charges to the customer?
Correct. So, council members, what we'll do is obviously include that revenue stream in our pro forma, just like we include all of our revenue streams. And that will be used to offset our costs in the future. So when we come back in about 1.5 years for a rate recommendation, that will be included in the pro forma.
Oh, great.
Any other questions? One of the questions that I had, and I think we have a representative from Ameresco, if they, would care to comment on this, but just the timing of this, I think there may be some, if you wouldn't mind, come on over and.
Chairman Gates and the other distinguished members of the committee. I'm Jim Beer with Ameresco. Yes, there are some very significant timing issues related to this project. We have the pipeline that you showed is crossing the Palo Verde effluent line, and that can only be done twice a year. So that's coming up in October. We don't want to miss that window of opportunity. If we do miss that opportunity, we have to wait another 6 months, which nobody wants to do. Also, we've been able to maintain our vendor pricing for the last 3 years while we've been negotiating the contract, and they are very uncomfortable with us keeping them to hold that pricing much longer. So June or July at the latest, city council approval would fit within that time frame. And then there was one more issue. Oh, the market right now, the green attributes that are associated with this, it's a very hot market right now, and we don't want to wait 6 months because we'll lose 6 months of good revenue. So.
Thank you for that perspective. Just for our viewers, maybe who don't know about your company, maybe you can talk about your experience, because this is, you watch this presentation, this looks like a pretty complicated process. Maybe you can just talk about that to give everyone a little sense of peace of mind.
Sure. I personally have been doing this for 30 years. It was my first job out of college doing this back with one of the pioneers. It was actually Getty Oil that did this. And they had a synthetic, Getty synthetic gas subsidiary that really tried to figure out what we could do with this gas. And it was to clean it up and put it in a natural gas pipeline. So we've been doing this for a long time. Ameresco has been doing this for the last 12 years. And in the last 10, we have built more biogas to energy projects than any other developer in the industry. So, and that includes not only just this type of use of the gas. You can make electricity out of the gas. You can displace boiler fuel like the city's doing now. You can find an end user that's close by that has a high natural gas use, and you can just use this gas in its kind of its raw state. It's cleaned up a little bit, but this is the best use of the gas right now by far. This market is very hot, and turning it into renewable natural gas is the best thing.
And do you see other opportunities within the city of Phoenix, other city of Phoenix properties where there might be other opportunities for renewable projects like this?
There are. Currently, at the landfills, there's the Skunk Creek landfill and some of the other landfills we've looked at, so we'd like to continue those discussions with the city. There's also some discussion of anaerobically digesting some organic waste, like food waste, collecting those. And I know that some of the cities are looking at that. I think Tempe might be on the forefront within the valley here for that. So yeah, we would love to spend some time, get this project done and up and going, and continue the discussion on other projects.
Great. Any questions from my colleagues? Yes, Councilor Nowakowski.
So it seems like we have 4 other cities involved: Glendale, Mesa, Scottsdale, and Tempe. So once we approve it, most likely the other councils would have to, or other cities would have to approve it also, or?
Yeah, Councilmember Gates, Councilmember Nowakowski, that's correct. So if you recall back to when we approved the contracts with the Arizona Nuclear Power Plant for the sale of reclaimed water, our council approved it, as did the councils of all of our partner cities. So we would expect for the same thing to happen here. The other cities have assured us that they can move it along in their process and bring it to their councils in June as well.
So going back to the question that the chairman had, can we actually put it on our first agenda or the next agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Nowakowski, we are shooting for June 15th. The mid-June date will meet everyone's expectations, and we'll get on with it. The other cities are planning to bring it to, not the contract approval per se, but the approval of the project to their councils in the week prior to that, actually. So we should all be together by the end of June.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you. Well, I just want to give compliments to the staff. I mean, they've really worked hard on this, and it's been a real pleasure working with them, and the project wouldn't be where it's at today without their support.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Yes.
add simply to Jim's point, the Public Works Department is actively engaged in analyzing the output at our various landfills so that we can perhaps bring this back to council with another renewable opportunity soon.
Super. All right. Anything else from my colleagues? Again, fantastic. Thrilled to have this project here. It's not an action item today, right? This was just information, but thank you very much and updating us on the accelerated timeline that we can look forward. Yeah, there was a reason why it wasn't set for action. You know, the good thing is when Councilman Waring doesn't turn his microphone on, no one can hear what he's saying, and I'm very appreciative of that right now.
You heard.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation.
That'll be in the minutes.
All right, so do we have any? We do not have a call to the public and future agenda items.
We do, Mr. Chair, have a list of future agenda items, so we do have one other piece of business that we would like to
Vested the chair in future agenda items.
to have for you.
Hey.
And so we can't let you get out of here without cupcakes. I don't even know the origin of the cupcake story, but there is one.
Not paid for at taxpayer expense, it's actually scrawled across
It's
the
true.
cupcake.
None of this is paid for at taxpayer expense, but seriously, Chairman Gates, on behalf of the staff and the members of the subcommittee, we want to present you with a plaque that says, Councilman Bill Gates, 2009 to 16, with appreciation for your service to the city of Phoenix as chair of the Finance, Efficiency, Economy, and Sustainability Subcommittee, which has identified over $112 million in efficiencies. We just like you to have this as a token of our appreciation. I'll hand it to Mr. Waring.
Bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this always has been a real team effort, and it's just been my honor to play a part in this. I don't know how the cake, it started as a cake and then turned into cupcakes. I'm not sure how that's happened, but what a nice way to celebrate. Ed, thank you so much for everything you've done. You've been involved in this process from the very beginning, and then in the second half of it as city manager. You have never forgotten what the goal was here. This started, just reminding everyone, this started as a $10 million goal. That was the goal that was first set out by David Cavazos, and to hear you read 112 million, and I know it will go much, and counting, that's an incredible accomplishment, and it wouldn't have happened without your leadership, Ed. The fact that you staff this subcommittee, sends a real message. The fact that you don't have it on today, but many days, Ed has a a penny on his lapel pin, which really sends that message to everyone at the city that it's about saving all this money, because in the end, it is the taxpayers' money. So thank you for your leadership and everyone who's been involved. Everyone in the organization has been a part of it. And at the council level, I'm just one of 9 involved. So Councilman Nowakowski, Councilman Waring, it's been a lot of fun serving with you guys on this subcommittee. Councilman Valenzuela as well. He had to leave early, but appreciate his involvement, and then the others through the years. And I'm getting this look from Councilman Waring.
I was wondering when it was fun.
So
That's
I-
my only-
It has been a great experience throughout, and so I just thank everybody for their involvement, and I know that this will continue on for many years in the future, because that's I guess the one request I'd make to everyone is that no matter how good things get here, that we never forget what led this movement and this effort was, that we don't ever want to get back there again with $277 million deficits. And as long as we keep this focus on as a city, we won't. So thank you, everyone. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.